Today's class on cube roots under number theory, we are going to consider how to find the cube root of a number. We're going to look at the cube root formula, and then we're going to look at the applications of cube root in real life situations. Now, in our previous class, we were able to look at what cube roots are, and we're able to tell you the definition of cube root, that we said is a number that when you multiply it 3 times gives the original number, and that number is what we call the cube root. And we were able to know what perfect cubes are. Have you seen that video lessons? Sure, if you are part of our member community, you must have seen that video, and if you are not, use this opportunity to check the description section of this video and click the join link to join our membership community. You're going to enjoy exclusive perks, exclusive live stream that is meant strictly for grade students. Now, in this video, just as said, we are going to look at how to find the square root, the cube root of number. Now, to find the cube root of number, there is one good method we use, and that is the method of prime factorization. Now, to carry out that method of prime factorization, I'm going to show you 3 good steps. Remember, to find the cube root of number, we're going to use the prime factorization method. Now remember, unlike the square root of numbers we have discussed in our previous classes, the cube root of numbers can only be gotten using just one method. Now, in this method, we are going to show you 3 steps. Step 1, we want you to start with the prime factorization of that number you are asked to find the cube root of. Now, in step 2, you'll be required to pair the factors that are obtained into a group containing 3 same factors. Take note, 3 same factors. And in step 3, after you have removed the cube root, because that will make it possible, pairing will make it possible to easily remove the cube root. Now, after you must have removed the cube root symbol and multiply the leftover number, then the number you obtain is exactly the answer to that question, is the cube root of that original number you are given. Now, let's look at how we can use these 3 steps to solve one simple method. Now, there is one big question that we asked in our previous classes on square roots. What if a number is left without having its own pair? If there is any factor that is left and cannot be divided equally into 3 groups, that means that that given number is not a perfect cube, and we cannot find the cube root of that number. Because if we find the cube root of that number, it is going to give us what we call a result that has to do with what? With solved. So that means that number is not what? A perfect cube. In our previous class, we have discussed what a perfect cube are, and then if you haven't watched that video lessons, I want you to go back and check the series of our videos and then watch that video lesson. Now, let's use these 3 steps I've shown you to find the prime factorization of this number. In this sample, you'll be required to find the prime factor of, if you are asked to find the prime factor of, not prime factor, find the cube root. We are going to be given a very large number. Let's see how we can solve this number, 15625. Now, we are asked to find the cube root of 15,625. So, how do we do this? The only method left for us is to use the prime factorization method. So, we'll find the prime factors of that number. Now remember what I told you in our previous classes about prime factors. Prime factors are those numbers that can only be divided by itself and what? And 1. So what are prime factors? Prime factors examples are 1, 2, we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 5, we have 11. All these are what? Prime factors, because they can only be divided by themselves and then 1. So we will be asked to find the prime factors of all these numbers. This number will be given, and the prime factor will now determine how we are going to group them. Now we are given 1, 5, 6, 2, 5. So according to the rule of divisibility, in which you must have learned in early grades in middle school, you must have learned the rules of divisibility. If a number ends with 5, that means that number can be divisible only by what? By 5. So that tells us that this number can be divisible by 5. So the first prime factor that can be divisible, or the lowest prime factor that can be divisible by this, is what? Is 5. 15 divided by 5 is going to give us 3, right? 6 divided by 5, we only have 1, remainder 1. 12 divided by 5, how many 5 can we find in 12? We have 2, and that will be remainder 2. 25 divided by 5, that 2 will make this 25. 25 divided by 5 is going to give us what? 5. Great. So you see, the first number 3 is less than 5, so we'll take the two numbers, the tens, which is 31. 31 divided by 5 will give us, because 6 times 5 is 30. So we'll be left with 1, right? That 1, if we add it here, it makes here 12. 12 divided by 5 is going to give us 2, and then we'll be left with 2. 25 divided by 5 is going to give us 5. So we'll go with another 5. 6 divided by 5 is going to give us 1, remainder 1. 12 divided by 5 is going to give us 2, remainder 2. That 2 makes that one 25. 25 divided by 5 is going to give us 5. 5 can still go. 125 divided by 5. 12 divided by 5 will give us 2, remainder 2. 25 divided by 5 will give us 5. And then 5 can still go. 25 divided by 5 is going to give us 5. 5 can still go. 5 divided by 5 will give us 1. So what are the factors? The factors are 5. That makes it very easy for us. Now, that means the cube root of 15625 is simply equal to the cube root of 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times what? Times 5. So that is step 1 done. Step 2 says we should pair the factor obtained in 3 groups of the same factor. And then we can pair this, and that is going to give us what? The cube root of 5 multiplied by 5 multiplied by 5. And this will be multiplied by the cube root of 5 and multiplied by 5. So what here, we're going to have this. So what do we have remaining? We're going to have this to become 5 times 5 times 5 will give us 5 to the power of 3, right? And this will give us what? The cube root of 5 to the power of 3. Now, the essence of grouping them into 3 is for us to clear the cube root sign. So the cube root sign will have to clear this, and this will have to clear this. And what do we have remaining? We'll be having our 5 multiplied by 5. So that means the cube root of 15625 is equal to 5 multiplied by 5, and that will be equal to 25. So that means if I multiply 25 3 times, I'll be able to get 15625. So the root is what? 25. And that is the cube root. Why the cube of 25 is 15625. So you see, it's very easy. Now, as you watch this video, I want you to take a pause on this video and then try to solve this question with these lessons you've just learned. I want you to find the cube root of 729. Find the cube root of 729. Pause this video, try it using this prime factorization method, and try to drop your answers in the comment section. I'll be so glad to see the result you have gotten from your solutions. Now let's look at the cube root formula, and that's the next thing we are going to consider. We're going to look at the cube root formula, and then we'll see one general formula we are going to use to find the cube root of numbers. So let's look at one general formula we are going to use to find the cube roots of numbers. Now when we talk about cube root formula, we're talking about a general formula we can use that can help us in calculating the cube root of any number that is expressed in that radical form. You remember that radical form, which is that radical sign 3, that is cube root. So if any number is expressed in that radical form, what formula can we use to express or to solve or calculate the cube root of any number in that radical symbol? Now, it can be calculated first by finding out the prime factor of that given number. If we use a general formula, that means that general formula can be calculated by first finding the prime factor of that cube root, and then later applying that cube root formula in order to find the value of the cube root of that number. Now suppose that we have a value x, a number x, and we are asked to find the cube root of that value x. What we need to do is to find the prime factor of that value. If we assume that the prime factor is y times y times y, the next thing you do is to find the cube root of x, and this is the symbol. And to find the cube root of x simply means you also cube root this same word, y times y times y. And remember, y times y times y will give us y to the power of 3, right? So if we have y to the power of 3, the cube root of y to the power of 3 will cancel out the cube root, and then the cube root of x will simply be equal to y. So you see, that seems to be like the general formula. So what is the general formula? The general formula to find the cube root of any number, what is to find the factor of that number and then do what? Find the cube root of that number. That is just simply what you need to do. Now let's take a good and a typical example. Let's assume that we are asked to find the cube root of 64. I don't know the cube root of 64, but we are asked to find the cube root of 64. Now if we are asked to find the cube root of 64, that will give us the sign cube root of 64. Now the first thing that should come to your mind is to find the what? The prime factors of what? Of 64. So if we find the prime factors of 64, what are the prime factors of 64? We'll look for the lowest prime factor that can be divisible by 64. Now if I add 6 plus 4 is going to give me 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that tells me that this number is divisible by 2. So I'll start with 2 as the lowest number. 64 divided by 2 is going to give me 3 and what? And 2. Then 2 can go 2 in 32 is going to give me what? 1, 3. Then we'll have 1 remaining. 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. It's going to give me 16. Then the next thing we'll do is to divide this by 2. 16 divided by 2 is going to give me 8. And 2 can still go, right? 8 divided by 2 is going to give me 4. And 2 can still go. 4 divided by 2 is going to give me 2. And 2 can still go. And then 2 divided by 2 is going to give me 1. Now what do we have here? We have 2 multiplied by 2 into 6 what? Into 6 places. So how do we find the cube root of 64? Now following this pattern, we're going to find the cube root of 64. And what is the cube root of 64? The cube root of 64 is what? Is going to give us generally 2 multiplied by 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 2, and that is it, 62. Now you see that I can easily group this. If I group this, I will have 3, 3, 3. But if I ungroup this, I should be able to have 4 as in 3 places, which is still okay. I'll have the cube root of 4 multiplied by 4, right? So this can simply be equal to the cube root of 4 to the power of 3. While this cube root cancel out the cube, then the cube root of 3 of 64 will be equal to 4. So you see, this formula can easily help you to find the cube root of any number. Now what is the formula? The formula is the cube root of any number x is equal to the cube root of the factor of that number multiplied by y. And that is a general notation you should have at the back of your mind. So if you are given any number like 125, just fit in the 125 here and look for the factors of 125, group them into 3, and boom, your result will come out. So this means from here that 4 is the cube root of what? Of 64, since 4 to the power of 3 can give us what? 64. So 4 is the cube root, and the cube of 4 is simply what? 64. So you see that this is exactly how we can find the answers of the cube root using this cube root formula you've just seen. Now, what are the applications of cube root? If we want to apply cube roots in everything, in which application can we use this cube root formula? You see, this cube root formula we just derived can be used in a lot of applications, but the few major applications of this cube root formula is one, in solving cubic equations. As you go higher in your high school classes, you're going to see equations like this: ax to the power of 3 plus bx to the power of 2 plus cx plus b equal to plus d equal to 0. Now if you see a question like this, these are cubic equations. You can use this cube root formula in order to find solution to this, and this is going to give you 3 solutions because it's a cubic equation. Now we can also use this cube root formula to find the dimension of a cube. Remember, you have a cube. We can use it to find the dimension of a cube given what? Because given the volume of that cube. Because the volume of a cube is equal to the side to the power of what? To the power of 3. And that works well with the cube root formula, right? So with this cube root formula, you can use it to solve these 2 things we've just talked about. So you see, the application of this cube root formula can truly help you go a long way in solving mathematics as you go higher in your high school classes. In today's class, we've been able to see how to find the cube root of a number. We've seen how to find a cube root of numbers using a general formula. And we've seen the application of this formula in two regular places, solving cubic equation and finding the dimension of a cube if the volume is given. If you haven't joined our membership classroom, do well to join our membership classroom. I'll be dropping a question that I want you to try. And this question, I want you to look at this question thoroughly and see how you can solve this question. Now, the question from these topics are, we're going to look at 3 questions, and I want you to find an answers to this question before you end this video. The questions for these lessons are: question 1, is 729 a perfect cube? I want you to answer yes or no, having used the prime factorization to either find the answer to that question. Question 2, James' father's age is 27 years. Find the age of James if his age is the cube root of his father's age. Now, I want you to try out this question and drop your answers in the comment section of this video. Now, the question 3 says you should find the cube root of 512. Try out these 3 questions under these 3 topics we've discussed, and be sure to try them out. It will help build or consolidate your knowledge on cube roots. And we want to see your feedback. Do try to give us a feedback via our classroom if you are in our membership community. And if you are not in our membership community, do drop your answers in the comment section. Until the next class, where we will look at some important thing that has to do with cube. We've discussed cube roots. What are the cube of a number? How can we find the cube of a number? And other questions. Don't miss that video lessons. Be sure to join our membership community so that you can have access to such videos. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I want to say bye-bye.